Hello and praise God. I want to believe that we are all doing well in the Lord. Today we want to revise paper 2, agriculture, that is based on the West Kenya Union exams that we did last term, the year 2025. So welcome and be attentive even as we discuss together. So as usual, our paper 2 usually has 3 sections. That is section A, B, and C. Section A questions are compulsory, all of them, and then they are awarded 30 marks in general. And then section B is usually either diagrammatic question or short structured question or even some short essay questions and calculations where necessary. And then that is usually 20 marks together. And then we have section C, which is usually essay question comprised of 3 questions, but you select only 2, totaling to 40 marks. So having said that, let's move to our first question of section A. Name one intermediate host for each of the following livestock parasite. One intermediate host for each of the following livestock parasite. Now, Fasciola species, that is usually known as liver fluke. The intermediate host is the freshwater snail. When we talk of intermediate host, we mean that host that this parasite grows in or develops in it but does not reproduce. The host that the parasite reproduces in or multiplies in number in, that one becomes the primary host. But in this case, intermediate host of Fasciola species is freshwater snail. Then tapeworm, also known as Taenia species, the intermediate host is usually pig or cattle. Remember, for pig, it is known as Taenia solium, and then for cattle is known as Taenia saginata. So name the breed of goat kept for hair production. We have different types of goat breeds kept for hair production, and the hair produced by goat is known as mohair. So in this case, we have Angora and then Kashmir, or sometimes known as Kashmiri goat. Question 3. Give 2 reasons for having a foot bath in a cattle dip. When we talk of a foot bath is that place where the cattle first dip their feet, and then the feet is washed or disinfected before that cattle goes into the dip tank. So apart from cleaning the animal feet, the foot bath is also necessary in controlling foot rot, which is a disease specifically attacking the foot. Okay, so we move to our next question. Question 4. Differentiate between the following tool. Number 1, bastard file and rasp file. When you talk of bastard file, is usually used for smoothing metal, and then rasp file is usually used for smoothing wood. You see, all bastard and rasp are used for smoothing, but now the material that they smoothen is what differs. So all of these are smoothing tools and equipment, but they smoothen different tools. That is bastard for metal and rasp for wood. Coping saw and hacksaw. Coping saw is used when cutting curves on thin woods. The key point there is thin woods. And then hacksaw is used when cutting metals or plastic. Okay, next question. State any 2 reasons why ewes disown lambs. Now, ewes ewes are actually female. Ewes are female sheep. Now, female sheep do disown their uh, babies or other lamb when the lamb is sick, or when the female itself, or when the mother itself herself is sick or injured. Then when the mothers lack enough milk, they will also disown the lamb. When there is lack of enough feeds for the mother also, and when there is discomfort of the mother due to what? Parasites. Due to parasites. So you realize again it is very critical for us to control both internal and external parasites, as they can lead to the mother disowning their babies. Number 6, list any 4 qualities of good creep feed. Now, what is creep feed? Creep feed is that feed given to young animals during weaning stage. Now, for a feed to qualify to be a creep, it must be highly digestible. It also should be highly palatable. That means that it should be appetizing and good for appetizing to both taste, eye, and even smell. Then should have high energy content, should be rich in mineral, for example, iron and calcium, should be able also to supply vitamins such as A, B, and D, and then it should be able to contain high digestible crude protein. High digestible crude protein. Okay, question 7. Name 2 livestock diseases that are caused by protozoa. Now, we all know protozoa are pathogens. They are pathogens. Examples of diseases caused by protozoa in livestock include, but not limited to, trypanosomiasis or Nagana, East Coast fever, anaplasmosis, and coccidiosis. Those are examples of diseases that can be caused by protozoa as a pathogen in livestock diseases. Question 8. State 4 parasites that a farmer should carry out to reduce egg-eating habits in poultry. State 4, it is practices. State 4 practices, not parasites. State 4 practices that a farmer should carry out to reduce egg-eating habits in poultry. Now, egg eating is a vice, a bad character that we don't want it to happen in poultry. So how do we control that? Number 1, you can hang vegetable in the poultry house so that you keep the poultry busy, and then you can also scatter grains in the litter so that the chicken will be kept busy in scratching for looking for the grains. Then you should also collect the eggs frequently. Feed the chicken with a balanced diet. Then use darkened nests. And then you can cull those that eat the eggs, and then also you can debeak. Remember, debeaking is basically cutting off the beaks of those that are eating the eggs. Question 9. State 2 ways of preparing the sow. It is sow for pig. S-O-W, not S-A-W. This is sow for cutting. For farrowing. Now, we usually do some practices before or after, as we prepare for farrowing. Remember, farrowing is basically the act of giving birth in pigs. So you can deworm the sow, you can wash and clean the sow, reduce the feeding gradually, move the sow to farrowing pen, and you can also apply pesticides so as to control external parasites. Question 10. List 4 predisposing factors to livestock diseases. Now, predisposing factors are those factors that will expose these or make this animal or livestock contract a certain disease. So sex of the animal is a predisposing factor, the age, the species, the hygienic condition, what about the population, is it overcrowded or not, and then the presence of sharp objects. Remember, sharp objects will end up either piercing or cutting through the animal's body. And then we have others like presence of vector or disease causing organisms. So those are some of the ways that those are some of the predisposing factors of livestock diseases. Okay, next question. State 4 management practices that will ensure maximum harvest of fish from fish pond. What are some of the practices that you'll do so as to ensure that you get a good catch or a good harvest as you harvest your fish from the fish pond? On the same note, please check on the difference between fish harvesting and fish cropping. So for you to have a maximum harvest, you can control water pollution. You can also supply food or nutrients for aquatic for the fish or aquatic life. Remember, when we talk about this, it's aquatic because fish are found in water. Then aerating the water so that you can ensure there's a flowing of water. Then maintaining appropriate depth of water in the pond, and finally control of the stocking rate. You stock fish that the pond can sustain without actually depleting the resources found in the pond. Next question. State 2 advantages of using wood in the construction of farm building. Now, we all know that wood is cheap compared to other materials such as stones and even metal. Then wood is readily available, as we can just go and do lumbering in the forest and anywhere else. It is easy to work with woods compared to when you are working with metals and other masonry materials. Question 13. Outline 4 reasons for debeaking in poultry. Now, we initially had talked of a vice of egg eating. Egg eating is a vice in poultry production, and we checked that one of the ways of controlling that vice is by debeaking. And I said that debeaking is removal of the or cutting of the beak of that bird so as to prevent egg eating. Now, apart from preventing egg eating, it is also necessary for us to debeak so as to reduce fighting within the flock, to reduce pecking, so as we can also reduce feed wastage. We can also reduce feather pulling. Remember, when they have sharp beak, they can peck on their colleagues and end up removing their feathers. So it is also necessary so that we can handle properly birds that are to handle birds. When handling birds, it becomes painless. Question 14. State what happens on the following parts of a hen during egg formation. Now, this question, students usually tend to confuse it with reproduction, with digestion. Reproduction and digestion. Now, when you talk of magnum, this is the area where there is addition of light albumen. Remember, we have light albumen and also thick albumen. At the same time, yolk moves into the isthmus. So it is still in yolk form. So in the isthmus, it is where water, mineral, and even vitamins are added to the yolk. Then shell membranes are also added, and then egg moves where? To the uterus. Okay. Question 15. State 4 desirable features of a rabbit hutch. Rabbit hutch is that structure or building where we keep rabbit. So it should be divided, number 1, it should be divided into 2 parts, that is the sleeping area and the exercising area. It should be also roofed so as to protect the rabbits against harsh environmental condition. and then the floor should be wired or netted so that it can allow droppings to get out of the room, and then it should be well ventilated as it's supposed in all farm structures and buildings. Then it should have feeding and watering trough, of course, so that we can provide the feed and the water to the rabbits. Okay, so that is all about rabbit hutch. So question 16, state two physical features of a good layer. What are some of the things that will make us say that this bird is a good layer? Number one, the bird demonstrates late mounting. Late mounting. The bird demonstrates late mounting. So late mounting. They rarely go broody, meaning they don't want to sit. Remember, brooding is that act of where you find a chicken wanting to sit on the eggs. Then the shanks are pale in color. The abdomen is wide, flexible, and soft. The vent is oval, moist, and red in color. And then the space between the keel and the pelvic bone fits 3 to 4 fingers. Remember the 3-finger rule. And then the combs and wattle are large and appear waxy and red in color. Waxy and red in color. So I will give you an assignment. Draw the diagram of a chicken and label all the parts. Draw the diagram of a chicken and label all the parts of that chicken. Next question. State 4 factors considered when sighting an apiary. First thing that you should consider is the place sheltered or not. So a sheltered place is considered. Availability of water, availability of flowers. It should be away from human beings and livestock, and it should be free from noise and other disturbance. Remember, when we are talking of apiary, this is basically keeping of bees, and we know bees are capable of causing harm to both human beings and livestock. Question 18. Give 2 reasons for foot trimming in sheep. When we talk of foot trimming, is that act of ensuring that you remove excess parts or parts that may cause discomfort to the sheep around the feet or area of that sheep. So we trim the foot so as to avoid injury, for easy mating also, to allow proper walking, and then it should be and all that. So you avoid injury, and also for easy mating, and then allow proper walking. So these are not so those are the answers. We do it so as number 1, to avoid injury, and then number 2, for easy mating, and then to allow the sheep to walk properly. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. Question 19. Give 4 features of a good laying nest. When you talk of a good laying nest, it should have soft nesting material so as to prevent cracking of eggs when they are laid. And then the side should be long, and then it should be spacious enough to hold the hen and allow the hen sit comfortably as it lays the egg. Then part B of question 19, give 3 reasons why a young calf must be fed on colostrum during the first few days of life. Why is it necessary that we give our calf colostrum, that is the milk from the mother, during the first few days of the calf's life? Number 1, colostrum is usually nutritious. Colostrum has laxative effect on the calf. Colostrum will clear the bowel of the calf, and then it contains antibodies that fight infection. So that is the reason why we usually provide colostrum to the calf during the first stages of the calf development. Now, section B of our paper, It contains several questions, and the total marks is usually 20. So let's begin with question 20. The diagram below illustrates the farm tools labeled A, B, and C. Study them and answer the questions that follow. So when you look at diagram A, is actually a rake, because you see it has a handle, and then the blade is teethed. Then B is also kind of related to A, but it is having lesser teeth compared to A, so it qualifies to be a fork. And then C is actually either a jembe or a hoe. State 3 proper uses of tool labeled A, that is a rake. Number 1, a rake can be used in leveling a seed bed or even nursery bed. Then it also used in covering small seeds after planting. For example, the seeds for kales and all that. Then collecting or gathering rubbish. It is also used when collecting or gathering rubbish in the farm. Okay, part B. Field condition to use tool B. What are some of the field conditions that will make it necessary for you to use a fork jembe? Number 1, the field should be having sticky soils. That is a qualification. And then the field must be having some rhizome or stolen weeds. It requires a fork. And then when working on hard soils, you also require a fork. Or when the field is stony, meaning there are so many rocks and stones, that one will make you require a fork. Question 21. A diagram of a sheep is shown below. Study the diagram and answer the questions that follow. So when you look at the diagram, this is a sheep, and this part is labeled belly, and then we have part A labeled at the tail, then part B labeled at the foot or hoof. What operation is usually carried out on the part labeled A? Since this is a tail or a dock, when you work on the tail, you can either do tailing or docking. It is known as tailing or docking. Part B. Give 2 reasons for carrying out the operation stated in A above. We carry docking or tailing so that we can facilitate easy mating, enhance fat distribution, even fat distribution, and then also prevent blowfly infestation. Prevent blowfly infestation. Okay, part C. At what age should the operation in A above be carried out? Docking is usually carried out when the sheep is still young, 2 to 3 weeks after birth. Give 2 methods of carrying out the operation. So we can use either a lastrator and a rubber ring, or we can use a sharp knife to cut off the tail. Which routine practice is carried out at the part labeled B? And I've said the part labeled B is the hoof. So the practice that is carried at the hoof is known as hoof trimming. We have already discussed about hoof trimming. The disease that is likely to affect the sheep if the operation stated in E above is not carried out, that is foot rot. When you don't practice foot trimming, you may end up allowing your sheep to suffer the condition known as foot rot. Explain how the sheep should be restrained when shearing the wool around the belly. So when shearing the sheep around the belly, you first restrain the sheep by holding it at the legs, turn it upside down. Then one person should handle the legs and another one shear the sheep. Then after putting it in that position, you now start shearing. You can start shearing. Question 22. The diagram below illustrates a livestock activity and livestock handling structure. Study the diagram and answer the questions that follow. So when you look at diagram C, this happens to be a diagram of maybe let's say a person trying to train this livestock to feed from the bucket. And then we have diagram D, which happens to be a farm structure, probably a shed or a milking place. So we are to label what is diagram C trying to illustrate. Diagram C is actually illustrating artificial feeding, or you can just call it bucket feeding. And then D is an illustration of a milking parlor or a milking shed. 2 hygienic precautions to be taken in activity C. Clean buckets should be used. The nails of the one training the livestock should be cut and or trimmed and kept clean. And then milk should be clean and kept at room temperature. The material used in construction of parts E and F. Material used in construction of part E and F. Part E, this is the part E being talked about, and then part F down here. So part E is wood offcuts or wooden boards of 4 inches. And then part F, you use concrete slab, which consists of stone, pebble, cement, and sand. What is the purpose of G and D? You see, G and D are at the same diagram, so they are used for putting feeds during milking. Actually, G is a feed trough, and it is used for putting feed during milking. Okay, question 23. The following diagram illustrates a symptom of a disease in poultry. Study it carefully and answer the questions that follow. Identify the disease. So look at the chicken. We can see we have some spots here around the head of this poultry or chicken. So that disease is usually known as fowl pox. The causal organism, it is usually a fowlpox virus. To control measures for the disease, we can do vaccination to control fowlpox. We can also practice hygiene in the farm so as to control fowlpox. Okay, so that one brings us to the end of section B and beginning section C, where we have 3 questions and each of them is awarded 20 marks, but you are to select 2. But for the purpose of revision, we are going to do all the 3. We are going to revise all the 3. So question 24 part A, discuss any 6 signs of trypanosomiasis in life. So when you talk of trypanosomiasis, some of the symptoms that are usually shown and signs include but not limited to running eyes, also known as lacrimation, which can result in blindness or sunken eyes. There is a diarrhea. The livestock can express or manifest signs such as diarrhea. Then there is emaciation, which is brought about by loss of weight, loss of hair towards the tail end, abortion in pregnant females, and then high fever or temperature. Then we also have anemia, and then loss of appetite. The livestock does not want to eat or feed, and then we have swollen parts of the belly. So those are symptoms that will indicate that this livestock is suffering from trypanosomiasis. Part B, explain the use of the fences in the farm. Why do we construct fences? Remember, fence is a subtopic in farm structures. So Perimeter fences mark boundaries. Fence also help in keeping off wild animals and intruders. At the same time, fence separate crop from field pasture, and also fence help in dividing pasture in paddocks. Fence also controls spread of parasite and diseases. At the same time, fence also control movement of animals or people, and fence is good for isolation of sick animals. Then fence provide security to homestead and farm animals. Next question. Part C. Explain various preparations carried out on fish before preservation. Before we preserve fish, what are some of the things that we do to the fish before preservation? So we clean the fish to remove mud and worms. We also remove scales and slime. We open the fish on the side so as to remove the gut and anal intestines. We also clean the abdominal cavity, and we keep fish in the open container. That is done before preserving the fish. Okay, next. Question 25, part A. Discuss any 3 breeding practices carried out on animals in the farm. Some of the breeding practices include, but not limited to, crunching and ringing. Crunching it's crunching, not crunching. Crunching is the practice of cutting wool around the external reproductive organ of female sheep to facilitate mating and prevent infection. Whereas ringing is the practice of trimming wool around the sheath of the male reproductive organ of rams to facilitate mating. Okay, other practices include tapping and serving. Tapping refers to the act of mating sheep and goat. So when you mate sheep and goat, that practice is known as tapping. But when you mate cattle and pigs, that one is known as serving. Okay, then we also have rattling. It is the practice of fitting the rams with breeding chutes, which are painted in different colors during breeding. So why do we do rattling? The chutes are fitted on underside around the breast of the ram, and the paint helps to identify the ewes that have been served and by which rams. So those are the practices done or carried out on animals during breeding. Okay, part B of the question. Explain any 3 types of metal used in construction. We have corrugated iron sheets used in making walls and roofs. Are durable, resistant. It is roofs, not roots. Resistant to insect damage and are also leak proof. Bars and rods includes posts, iron rods, frames, wires, and other metallic components used in conservation or construction. They are used in construction as poles, making trusses, windows, door, and also gates. Construction accessories include metal hinges, screw, nuts, and also bolts and latches. Aluminium sheets, it's another material. It's used in making prefabricated structure such as gates, doors, and also windows. Part C. Outline any 5 factors considered in selecting materials for construction of farm structure. When selecting farm construction materials, we have to check at the suitability of the material to prevailing weather conditions, then also check on the availability of the materials, workability of the materials, suitability of the material, durability. How long can that material stay? Strength of the material. Can it do that work which you want it to do? And then the cost of the material? Is it affordable according to your pocket? Okay, next question. Discuss the various methods of disease control in livestock production. You can use prophylactic drugs, such as coccidiosis to control coccidiosis. Then use of antiseptic or disinfectants to maintain farm hygiene helps in controlling scouts and also diseases like coccidiosis. You can practice quarantine so as you control outbreak of foot and mouth disease. Practice also isolation to control infectious disease like anthrax. Now, remember when you talk of quarantine, you are actually preventing a disease from you are preventing the disease from reaching your animals. But when you talk of isolation, the disease already is in your farm. So you are only separating those that have been affected from those that have not been affected. Okay, you can also carry out mass slaughtering so as to control zoonotic diseases like anthrax. Then vaccination can also be done to control beach quarter. You can use health breeding stock, as AI helps prevent breeding diseases like brucellosis. Proper nutrition is necessary to control diseases like bloat or even milk fever. Animals that are sick are treated. For example, diseases like mastitis can be treated and prevented from spreading. We can also use drenching to control internal parasites such as roundworms that may cause ascariosis. Resistant types of livestock are kept. For example, zebu cattle are resistant to East Coast fever. And then foot trimming is done to minimize occurrence of foot rot. We have already discussed that. Then proper housing is done so as to control diseases like pneumonia, which is caused by drought. Describe the digestion of grass in the rumen of an adult ruminant. So the food is temporarily stored in the rumen. As it is stored there, we have coarse grass is regurgitated for further chewing in the mouth. You see the grass has been returned back to the mouth and there is a chewing of the mouth. Saliva mixes with the feed when chewing the cud, creating an alkaline pH suitable for bacteria digestion in the rumen. In the rumen, carbohydrates are broken down into volatile fatty acid, acetic acid, and butyric acid. Proteins, on the other hand, are broken down into peptides or amino acids, and ammonia gas is released as a byproduct. Essential amino acids are synthesized from ammonia and the non-protein nitrogen. Microorganisms also synthesized certain vitamin B complex and vitamin K. Much of the volatile fatty acids and rumen wall into the bloodstream. So gases like methane, hydrogen, and carbon dioxide are gotten rid of through belching. You now see the cow is belching. That is producing the gas that has been created as a waste product. The food is then passed to the reticulum through the reticulum passage, or rather through the esophagus groove. So the food is passed to the reticulum through the esophagus groove. Finally, explain 2 reasons why rattling is necessary in sheep management. We have already discussed what rattling is, fitting the sheep with chutes, and these chutes are colored so that we can identify the ewes that has been tapped and those that have not, and tapped by which ram. So rattling helps to identify rams which have mated with ewes and those incapable of mating. It also helps to identify ewes that have been served, or ewes that are fertile, or those that are infertile and not served. So basically that is why we carry out rattling in livestock production. So up to that point, we have reached the end of our revision. I would advise that you reach out for more revision materials related to agriculture, both paper 1 and paper 2, even as we prepare for our national examination. Be blessed. See you next time. Bye bye.